welcome to all to this episode of the Eastern Rome Q&A. In this one, we're going to go over the questions you asked, which involve my personal historical opinions, emphasis on personal, so all of the answers below contain my own interpretation, which may or may not be of accord with yours. But in any case, don't get too mad in case we think too differently. Leave a respectful comment and I'm glad to have any discussion. So, let's begin. Historical fiction based in Byzantium that you would recommend. The best historical fiction about Byzantium I've ever read was The Sheen on the Silk by Anne Perry. Just read it, please. It's set in the early Paleologan era, which is highly underrated among historical writers, and it's surprisingly historically accurate, save for a few caveats that I could excuse just for creative purposes. But you can see that the author clearly did a lot of research, unlike some creators of historical fiction with insanely high budgets. But essentially, it's a story about a young aristocratic girl from the Empire of Nicaea looking for a brother in the newly restored Paleologan Constantinople by posing as a eunuch. It's intensely well written, especially the politics and the mood. It explores the aftermath of the Fourth Crusade even 60 years later, how it impacted the Romans and the foreigners in this cosmopolitan queen of cities, the trauma it left on the older generation. Just read it. You won't be disappointed. I can't think of others right now from the top of my head, but if anyone is interested in perhaps a series of reviews on Byzantine fiction, let me know and I'll make one. What's the biggest what-if divergent point in the Empire's history, in your opinion? Obviously, the earlier, the bigger the divergent point. I'd say, what if Remus founded Rome instead of letting Romulus found Rome? Then we'd have a whole divergent history of the Roman Empire. What do you consider the point of no return for the Eastern Roman Empire? My answer is surprisingly late compared to others who say, oh, from the Arab conquest, or Turkish invasions, or 1204, or Paleologan reconquest onwards, it's all downhill from there, for real. See, I have more faith in our Roman friends than most of you, and I have faith in their abilities to bounce back from disaster. It just so happened that one of the last emperors of the empire was incredibly competent and patriotic. Manuel II Paleologos and his sons did all their power to reverse the trend, especially Manuel, without whom the empire literally could have died with a whimper and nobody would have cared. Bayezid held Constantinople by its throat, but by a combination of all of Manuel's diplomatic and military efforts, the threat passed and the Romans experienced a small revival in the early 15th century. So I would say that the real point of no return was the second time an Ottoman besieged Constantinople, 1422. Ioannis VIII, although well-intentioned, committed a massive blunder by provoking Murad II into reducing the empire into its Bayezid-era state. Rome could have lived on as a city-state in Constantinople in the Peloponnese, though, if not for the final straw, when Constantinos XI did the same and provoked Mehmed II, who was looking for an excuse to finish off the husk of the empire off. So let's say the point of no return was after the rule of Manuel II. If you could change the outcome of one single battle after Yarmouk, other than Manzikert, which one would it be? Thank you for excluding Manzikert, because without Manzikert, there wouldn't be my beloved Comnenian dynasty and all the fun that came with them, so I will go for the 1204 Siege of Constantinople. The sack was a mistake. I hope it never happened. How would history have changed if Sicily remained in the empire? Two scenarios. If the Arabs never took it in the first place. if it was recaptured after or by Basil II, and also if the Normans were repelled successfully at least once if they still decided to invade. Okay, I will just choose the third scenario because I and all my homies hate the Normans. Now, being somewhat informed in the development of southern Italy and Sicily, because I wanted to impress my Italian teacher, I think I can answer your question with a degree of confidence. So, let's think about what would have happened if the Cappadocian remained under the Romans. First, Constantinople would still have an important hand in Italian affairs, and there's also a future hope of retaking former lands more up north, like Rome itself. The Pope would then be less inclined to cause ecclesiastical trouble like what happened with the Great Schism. So yes, I don't see a very strong Catholic-Orthodox divide in this timeline, which is honestly really good. Second, the Normans wouldn't have a base so close to the Balkan heartlands of the empire, meaning Alexius Komnenos would be spared all the campaigning and losing in the 1080s, even if the disaster at Manzikert happened. At least the Romans could focus on the east without worrying about their flank on the west, and the damage to Anatolia could be mitigated more effectively. Third, if the Turks didn't overrun Anatolia as much as they did, there wouldn't be a need to call for a crusade, and the Normans wouldn't have taken Antioch either. All in all, good gains for the empire, because as we know, the late Byzantine period was a series of shenanigans from the Latins in the west and Turks in the east. Now we have one main side relatively calm, so the Romans would have a much higher chance of surviving to the modern day and flourishing. Now, we must think about the implications for Italian history. What you have to understand about the Norman conquest of the Mezzogiorno is that it essentially cut Italy quite permanently into two halves, north and south, and especially from the High Middle Ages onwards, the different historical trajectories the two took fundamentally shaped their present state today. The Normans managed to unite the southern Italian lands into one feudal monarchy, which changed hands from them to the Swabians, to the Angevins, to the Aragonese, the Venetians, Bourbons, etc. But it remained the same kingdom with roughly the same borders and system, and the people had been accustomed to this type of governance, which brought them a lot of prosperity back in the Middle Ages, but not very well suited to the modern European mode of life, while the energetic cities and republics of the north caught on with it very well. Once Italy was united in 1861, those profound differences started showing, and uneven development and a lot of other factors caused the large discrepancy between North and South Italy today. Of course, historical reasons are not the only factor to la questione meridionale. I'm just mostly sticking with what has been said by the Italian economist Antonio Gramsci and other like-minded scholars, but history is one of the key contributors to this phenomenon, you can't deny it. Especially history since the Norman conquest. So, what would change if it never happened? The South wouldn't just change hands through Western European dynasties as often, like what happened after the Normans. Then I doubt the Latinization of these regions would be as strong as they are now in our real history, as the Mezzogiorno and Sicily belonged firmly to the Magna Graecia sphere through antiquity and the early Middle Ages, being a unique blend of Italian and Hellenic culture. And Sicily in the south wouldn't be introduced to feudalism, which was brought there by the Norman conquerors. In that case, we have to wonder, would there still be an idea to unify the various states of the Italian peninsula into one kingdom of Italy in the 19th century, and how would a non-feudal southern Italian economy impact the world? I will resign from speculating on how a Roman Sicily would fare better or worse economically in the modern world compared to one under the feudal Bourbons, and if the Roman administration would close more of the gap between North and South. I'll leave this kind of theorizing to actual Italians who know the complexities of their society much better than I do. But I will say one thing concerning the fate of the Sicilian Mafia. whose origins were certainly in the defeudalization of Sicily and post-unification Italy. While there are also some theories which take La Casa Nostra's beginnings all the way back to the Middle Ages, finding some precedents in them in various forms of local resistance against foreign conquerors, like the legendary Beati Paoli, the Sicilian Vespers, or even the Arab struggle against the Normans. Notice how all of these supposed precedents and the certain mid-19th century origin in the Bourbon realm, which historians could agree on, were all long-term consequences of the Norman conquest, as I have explained. So, if that didn't happen, it's possible we wouldn't have the Mafia today, which wouldn't even form in Sicily, let alone spread to the USA. So could we say Roman South Italy would reduce organized crime in Italy and other countries with significant Italian migration? Well, maybe. And that's the biggest speculation I am able to offer for you now. Say Hispania and all territory in between was reconquered and held long enough that Rome ended up filling Spain's role in colonizing the New World. Would it be a better ruler? How would it interact with its new subjects if it managed to replicate Spain's conquests? Would it be just as religiously zealous? Would it have a racial caste system? Would they dismantle pyramids and use excessive slave labor, etc., all without the excuse of being traumatized by the Reconquista? Ooh, I'll be real with you, G. For all my praise for the Romans as a pioneering seafaring culture that's not afraid of innovation, I think only truly mad people will pursue a transatlantic conquest operation. You have to be a convict like Eric the Red, or a Genoese like Chris Columbus. The Romans, as they entered their later eras, became much more cautious, more traditional, more content to safeguard what they already have. But okay, for the sake of argument, let's just say that. How would your hypothetical world even look like? A Roman Empire in Spain, but far removed from Constantinople and the Silk routes in the east. So, practically a revived Western Roman Empire, with Arabs and Turks blocking the goods from India and China, and Romans, being pissed at the percentage rise in the price of spikenard, decided to circumvent the globe to find their ancient trade partners head on. Okay, sounds wild, but this whole video is wild. Based on pure speculation, then, no. I don't think the Romans would be as bad as the Spaniards when it came to dealing with the Native Americans. For one, slavery as a concept was more or less abolished during the reign of Alexios I Komnenos, or at least around his dynasty. Some Pariki in the empire might still not live with a life of dignity, but that's a huge leap forward. Romans, who used to be so open towards slaves of all origins, now didn't take in slaves of any race. They just sometimes exploited labor like our modern capitalists. It's so ironic that with the advent of Christianity, the slavery aspect of the empire just kept fading until I decided to do away with it altogether. And that's a second point I want to address. The Romans, in general, were more focused actually on the real teachings, the real message of Lord Jesus Christ. The need to spread love and understanding rather than forcing others to convert through force. I am not saying Romans were all saints, absolutely not. They were real humans with real human vices. They can be horrible at times. There were Christian Romans who acted more barbaric fashion than pagan Romans ever could. But if you don't nitpick me and just look at the general development of Roman society and its tending towards philanthropy, the more Christian it became, you can see that Christianity acted more as a positive driving force of their society, unlike in many others today. Naturally, Romans will send out missionaries to convert the Americans if they find themselves exploring the New World, but I see a more gentle conversion process, like Saints Cyril and Methodius evangelizing the Slavs by helping them create their own writing system and actually trying to understand them, rather than what the Spaniards attempted. So in general, probably the better of a case in America if the Romans discovered it first. Do you think if the empire, say, held its communion borders, that at some point the empire would have gone through the Renaissance, with the rest of Europe as well, or just Rome, due to the monopoly of classical documents? Thing is, the Romans did go through a Renaissance even earlier than the Italians, I'd say. The Paleologian Renaissance, which I've yapped endlessly about in my latest videos, remember? Humanism and the classical rediscovery was more parallel than we usually think. Roman scholars like Maximus Planudes and even Theodoros Mitochitis began those humanist discourses long before Petrarch was a thing. And the Romans themselves never truly lost the classics, remember? It was just more of a higher surge of interest during the 14th century and beyond than before. The Italian Renaissance no doubt will continue, as it already happened. Except that in this case, the Ottomans probably wouldn't be a thing, and there wouldn't be so many Romans fleeing to the west to teach Greek. However, this does not mean that the Italians would never achieve what they did. Even in the late Paleologian Empire, many Italians took the pains to travel to the empire and learn under the intellectuals there, going back to Italy and claiming to have studied at the University of Constantinople was highly prestigious. Now, as long as the Italians managed to pass the Renaissance on to the rest of Europe, France, the lowlands, Britain, then things would go on. But the center of the Renaissance wouldn't be the North Italian city-states, rather within the Roman Empire, I think. Constantinople most likely, or a cosmopolitan city more to the west, like Mystras or Thessaloniki. The major difference, then, is that instead of Romans carrying their precious knowledge to Europe, it would be the Europeans coming to Romania to seek it themselves. At least that's how I speculate. What is your holy trinity of Eastern Roman primary sources? Specifically stuff following the Justinian era, so no Procopius. Now, let's talk about my beloved primary sources. When you say Holy Trinity, I suppose you mean my top 3 favorite ones, those which I find most useful and most dear to heart. And to the dear friend who asked the question, if you think eliminating Procopius makes answering harder, I apologize for your disappointment. It actually facilitates my task, because it's hard enough to narrow down to just 3 without even our favorite gossip girl desperately seeking my attention. So, only 3. Then I would choose Ioannis Skeletsis Synopsis, Anna Komnenis Alexiad, and Georgios Francis Chronicon. Skeletsis is an obvious choice. He covered the entire Middle Byzantine period, and his text served as basis for a beautifully illuminated manuscript of Byzantine history. Alexiad, well, because Anna is awesome. As for Francis, he was the opposite of Anna in terms of elaborate rhetoric and fancy vocabulary, but follows the same vein in showering his friends, who were also historical figures, with love in his work. By reading Anna and Francis, you can witness the characters of Alexios Komnenos, Emmanuel, or Konstantinos Palaiologos come to life before your very eyes, pretty much the same way. So, that's my Holy Trinity. What do you believe was worst for the Romans? The Battle of Manzikert, or the Battle of Yarmouk? Yarmouk, obviously. I place higher value on the Levant than Anatolia for the rest of the empire. Love Anatolia, but let's be real, the Levant had been home to the oldest and wealthiest cities in the world. Every empire ever wanted a piece of it. And seeing that the Romans were so religious, I'd expect the loss of the Holy Land to upset them more than the loss of Asia Minor. The best Eastern Roman monument, other than the Hagia Sophia. The Hagia Sophia of Trebizond, an amazing 13th century Trapezuntine church, built by either Manuel I Megaskomnenos or Ioannis II Megaskomnenos. It's got so many layers to it. Such a beautiful blend of East Roman architecture, from Constantinople with local Pontic, Georgian, Armenian, Seljuk elements. Sadly, it's also a mosque nowadays. But go read Art and Identity in the 13th Century Byzantium, Hagia Sophia and the Empire of Trebizond by Anthony Eastman. He can explain why the Trapezuntine Hagia Sophia is sick better than I can. Who do you think had the best claim to be a third Rome? Well, the United States of America, or the friendly nation which helped it achieve its independence from the Brits in the first place. France. Duh. What's your opinion on Byzantine fashion? Geek. Please, men, dress like that again. Put on your elegant chlamys, embroidered tunica, pileus panonicus, stylish tangia. Wear habits with a bit of class. And I speak to ladies too, so that no one will accuse me of sexism. We gotta normalize wearing proploma and dalmaticon again, preferably with jewelry draped all over. The world needs to know real drip again. Your opinion on being one of the best Roman history channels yet? Aw, I'm flattered, but I don't think I am one of the best. This channel remains relatively small and unknown, so there must be something I'm not doing right. But nonetheless, I really appreciate the support. So, thank you all for watching this one, and see you soon for more Q&A and more content. Peace.